Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy. It's Monday after a great weekend. How was your? I know you went on a trip with your daughter, didn't you?
Yes, yeah. Oh, we've had a great time. We went up to a little area called Fry Island, Maine, which is literally this isolated island in the middle of Sebago Lake. And we were just up there for the day, but it was so much fun. And you have to take a ferry over it. When you get over there, everybody kind of does golf carts and bikes all over it. There's 12 little beaches around it, and it's kind of a throwback to older times, I think, but it was precious. We had beautiful weather and got to kayak all over and
Oh,
got a
nice.
little bit of storming. We picked blueberries on the island, you name it. So it was lots of fun. How about your weekend?
Well, we've just finished filming some of our online courses that we'll put out over the next 6 to 7 months, in addition to the ones we already have up online. 10 more actually that we did, and of course you came out and were
Yeah,
part of
we
that.
were happy to be part of the
Uh,
last four of them.
yeah,
They were awesome.
and we had celebration of Linda's birthday, 70th birthday, and our ministry anniversary of 20 years
Hmm.
that we did. And during that celebration, we invited a uh, piano player singer up from the Broadmoor.
Yep.
That he has a deal where they've got a songbook, and they do this down at the Broadmoor on
At the
weekends.
Golden
The
Bee.
Golden Bee, and so we've got to know him, and he's just a neat Christian man who's got a great heart and gifted, very gifted. And so,
Hmm.
so he comes up, brings his songbook, and there's 150 songs in the songbook. And we're there's probably 25 of us or so sitting in our big room with him playing the piano, uh, and we just call out a number,
Hmm.
number, uh, you know, 44, and it would be the Beatles song "And She Loves You," and so he has no music, and he just plays it from his gifted memory,
Right.
and gets us going, and it's funny, and then we give him the next one, and then he shifts immediately to the next song. So he played for 2.5 hours, uh,
Amazing, right?
and didn't take a break. He didn't. I said, "You want a break?" He said, "No, I'm having too much fun." He played for two 2.5 hours, and it was quite a hoot.
That's great. Yeah,
To
I was
experience it.
sorry we missed that
Yeah,
evening, but we sure had fun with the rest of it when we were there,
yeah,
and
yeah. It was
yeah,
fun,
we
and
loved every minute
we
of it.
played a little top golf. You did really well, and
Yes.
Dan did really well. So
So here's my question for you on Top Golf, though. You and Dan, y'all were definitely a little more competitive in the setting. And yet I ran into Janet Cachero at a C12 event, and the comment was, I heard you're competitive. I'm like, how in that setting am I the one who came off competitive?
yeah, that didn't. Dan and I
It
were
was,
competitive.
yes, you
you
were.
were
You
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 guys
weren't.
were tight. Y'all were
Uh,
good.
I think she was talking about Monica.
And then maybe she did get it confused,
Monica
but
is
I
competitive.
had fun though.
Yeah,
That was such a fun. The whole trip was fun. Y'all
yeah,
loved the courses. I'm gonna put in a shameless plug for those courses because Dan and I were there just for 3 days of the taping, and that involved four different courses, and every single one of those is something that everybody should go through.
yeah.
I mean, just amazing content that I know we are going to spend weeks and weeks going back through. But these online courses, guys, if you have not checked out the website, you need to go get in this because this is phenomenal material. And I can't thank you and Linda enough for the way you guys work so hard to put it out and just so sacrificially do this.
Yeah, it's quite fun.
We had a great time and great teaching. So
We have right now we have 8 up, and we have our ninth one just about ready to put up. And that involves, what we do is we tape them. Kathy, the production company, we just taped 10 new courses. They said they have approximately 10 terabytes of video recording.
wow. Wow.
And now they're going to go edit it, and they will. Each course is anywhere from 3 to 5 to 6 hour sessions, what we call lessons. And for every hour, and we've got close to 45 to 50 of those taped
Right.
on the new group. They said they'll take 6 hours each. Each lesson takes them 6 hours to edit it.
To edit. They will be tired of our faces.
They will
right?
be. They will know this material really well. So we have 9, getting almost 9 up on our website, which you can order, and then we have 10 more that will be coming out by the end of the year into first of next year. And I've already got several new ones actually that are being developed right now that we'll be able to tape next summer. So.
Well, I tell you, this was some of my favorite material.
Yeah.
So once again, just great stuff. So
yeah, it's really fun.
looking forward to it coming out.
And as we've talked about chaos, a couple things are happening actually right now. One is in the whole COVID variant, what they call the Delta variant. They're having new numbers of new cases, particularly in areas on the East Coast right now, and
not really the Northeast, but a lot in the more like the southern.
Yeah, more in the
southern,
Southeast. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And so the impact of it all is that, again, we're facing a moment of what I would call chaos, and chaos is simply defined as different than what we're used to, and the suddenness of it that comes upon us because my routine, my life that I thought was going to run a certain way is now changed because of what I call, the chaos. So there's already discussion about, masking up again, shutting things down, maybe even on a national scale, school issues.
Lots of school board meetings going on right
Yep.
now, frantically trying to figure out what to do.
Yep, and employment, and again, if they go to what they call locking down, then the offices again will not be functioning. So that means people will have to do things remotely and not have jobs, etc. So it's going to be an interesting thing to watch, and that we're just saying that. It's not, in a way, it's not surprising because, the enemy, the world of the enemy is kill, steal, and destroy in creating chaos. And we just happen to be personally in a phase of our lifetime where we've seen such dramatic changes quickly that we didn't used to. And now, as things are chaotic. Partly, by the way, because we've lost what I believe is a strong respect for each other, and I'm talking about fellow human being, and whether you're a certain party or a certain race, or it's just my perspective has always been, well, we can process stuff together. And do it well. We can process well, even disagree. We can respect each other in that disagreement.
Right.
Have
healthy conversations.
Yeah, have healthy conversations, and don't take it so heavy or personally, even though somebody might disagree with me.
Right.
I've never personally ever taken that on a personal level. It's like, okay, I understand your position, and I'm happy to discuss it. Here's my position. Here's your position. Hey, let's go enjoy each other at dinner. We can do that.
Right.
Well, I think we've lost that a little bit, and so with the disrespect is that now there's a desire to make sure that other people believe the same way I believe,
And
then,
this is happening among believers, even
yeah,
not just believer versus non-believer. This is happening within the Big C church.
yeah, and so the chaos is stimulated a little bit out of a truth of Scripture, and that is a house divided will fall. And so what I'm seeing on a global level, particularly in the United States, politically, with different movements within the church, is there's a division. And by the way, I know what's behind it. Paul says it in Ephesians 6. You're not fighting against flesh and blood. You're fighting against principalities and powers, who is kill, steal, and destroy. And one of their key strategies is division.
Absolutely.
And interesting enough, and this is in Proverbs 6, God lists and said, "These are things that I hate. It's an abomination to me." The one that's last is seventh one is division.
Discord,
is sowing division. He said that's an abomination to me, because he's always bringing about harmony. He's always bringing about unity, which is, remember, as we're talking about, his will. So a house divided is going to fall. And so what I see the falling at the moment is we're falling away from the values that we've maintained. And as a result of that, then impact economically, politically, socially, that quick movement can happen and disrupt what we used to be, as part of our culture. So I just think the chaos in this whole COVID Delta variant and the reaction to that, what I don't see is okay, let's get to the facts, let's get to the options, let's talk about this together. It's now, I believe, become political, and so there's political responses with very little information being processed yet. So they're going to make decisions. We are going to lock down. We're going to do this. We're going to mask up. We're going to. You can't go to restaurants anymore, and that's already in play in a couple cities. And
New York just announced that.
And so it may get deeper than that. Well, that's going to be disruptive. And so the impact, again, as we're trying to help people, is that's going to happen. It's not surprising, but God has answers to us, and as we seek His will, He said, none of that surprises me, and none of that is going to limit me, God speaking, to deliver what I'm going to give you through wisdom and insight in my work as you follow, my will. And by the way, another aspect of the chaos, and this is happening actually with our government. I don't know if people understand this, but when Trump was president, they set the debt limit. And debt limit is the amount that can be borrowed by the United States government. And they set it at $22 trillion, which has been dramatically increasing even during the last...
Which is crazy in and of itself.
Yeah. Well, because of the COVID and the stimulus packages, they suspended it. So they just said, you know what, we're not even going to raise it. We're going to suspend it, and you can borrow as much as you need. Well, we're now our debt level is now $28.5 trillion, and it exceeded it by $6.5 trillion. Well, they had and when they suspended it, they put a date of mid-August 2021.
Did they really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that it would revert back to the last debt limit. Okay, well, there's two interesting things about that. We're already at 28. This month, and literally in a week or two, it reverts back to 22. So by definition, unless they have the money to pay it back, which we don't, they're going to have to raise it minimally to that. And there's what's called an infrastructure stimulus bill that's up to $3 trillion to be added to that. So they're going to have to raise the debt limit for us to function as a government dramatically.
Right.
And it's going to go up and up and up, particularly if they shut things down again. We'll add another $6-7 trillion on
Right.
top of it. So, and so here's the chaos. It's already set in motion.
Mm-hmm.
They have to deal with it. If they don't deal with it, it shuts the government down
Mm-hmm.
by definition. So that's a possibility. And because the political parties are fighting over it, each of them are threatening to say, "Go ahead, shut us down,"
Mm-hmm.
and not take care of this issue. Well, if that happens, that'll have a dramatic impact on the chaos of the world and the United States and the people of the United States, and it's a real issue. And by the way, the normal solution is just raise the debt limit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they raise it, they'll have to raise it to at least 30 trillion and probably go up to 35 trillion. See, the economics create a stress. And you and I have talked a little bit about inflation,
Right.
which normally in inflation, the Federal Reserve, who is not a U.S. institution, interested enough, raises interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
And then the amount of interest paid by everybody, including the U.S. government, rises up. And they try to do that to control inflation.
Right.
Well, even at 28 trillion right now, if they raise the interest rates, which is why they haven't, it would consume almost all of the federal budget to pay the interest.
Right.
Not even including principal, which they're not going to do either. So there's a little bit of a struggle of that we're building, almost a point where do we pass where we literally, like we as an individual family, when you run out of money, you go bankrupt.
Right. Right.
So that's possible. And we'll talk a little bit about that in our end times discussion coming up on Friday. But the chaos is that it's in the whole thing is economically with what their decisions are going to be, which they're going to have to they have to deal with this.
Right.
Is going to be problematic. And so we got that pressure. So here's what I see in terms of chaos is we have that pressure that's real.
Right.
And we got COVID that's real.
Mm-hmm.
And likely, depending on what they do politically, they could actually cause, again, the business's economy to suffer, people to suffer with employment, which means the government would then step in with more stimulus.
Which is interesting because the timing is such that most of that stimulus is just now running out. And
Right.
now there could be potential cause to lock down again and then re-up some of these stimulus things.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see how this plays out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And again, we can't even, in a sense, say it's going to go this way or that way. It's just what we're trying to keep saying is that, and we're just giving you examples, chaos is the normal.
Yeah.
And things are going to be chaotic. So as we seek God's will, particularly amongst the Christian community, is that because of the chaos, and it's not, where it's denied by the Christian community, they look at the world and say, "Man, this is scary. It's a scary place." It can be a little bit fearful, and it always boils down to how is that going to impact me in terms of particularly my income. If I'm a business owner, my profitability, my ability to hire people, but as an employee, am I going to be retained by my company? And am I, because the economy has been doing quite well, having come out of the COVID issue, and the businesses have been doing quite well.
A lot of rebound, yes.
Yeah, but is that going to change, and is that impact going to be me? in terms of negative to me, and that creates fear. Well, the
Mm-hmm.
fear is, if you look at the world in a natural way,
Mm-hmm.
we would say, yeah, of course, the impact of this is scary. I could be disruptive, and it could really affect me negatively. But as we've been
Mm-hmm.
trying to help people understand, is that God's will um, understands all that, it doesn't surprise him, and
Right.
it doesn't limit him to be able to deliver a what we call the covenant life, best and none better,
Yeah.
in the middle of it, because he'll guide us, lead us, and perform things
Mm-hmm.
that only he can do.
Yeah.
Um,
It's interesting you even say that. I know that's something we share all the time, but you were talking about us just being up at your house. So Dan and I got to stay in Rich and Linda at their retreat house have each of the rooms where people are staying have a word to them, I
yeah,
guess,
yeah,
and a verse
a
that
word
goes
and a
with them.
verse. Yeah,
And we were in the room called Joy.
yeah,
And in that room, love that room. But in that room, Linda has a verse framed there, Psalm 16:11, that directly speaks exactly to what you're saying right now. And there is so much profound truth in that verse that I really think people have got to look at it and question for themselves as believers. Do I truly believe this to be true? And am I experiencing it?
yeah,
And the verse is
yeah.
Psalm 16:11, you will show me the path of life.
Mm,
In your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. There is nothing in there that says, except for in times of chaos, or except for when the world's going wacky, or except for during COVID. None of that exists. So we've got to really step back and say, do I believe he will show me the path of life? Do I believe he can show me what to do in the midst of all this chaos? Do I believe that when I am in his presence, I have the fullness of joy? And am I living my life in a way that shows I believe that? Or am I a walking poster of fear? And as a Christian, a lot of times I see more people living in fear and trying to be the loud voice than living in joy and shining a light. I cannot help but think of a verse that I saw actually in the room Dan and I stayed at, when we were out in Rich and Linda's retreat house doing this filming this last week. We stayed in their room called Joy. They have several rooms in the house, and each one has a name to it and a verse that goes with it. And Linda has this verse framed in there that has just resonated with me so much lately, and that is Psalm 16:11. And it says, you will show me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. And I think about that as we navigate these times and think, do we really know this? Are we experiencing it? There's three key parts there. You will show me the path of life. Do we believe as Christians that he's going to show us how to navigate through this chaos, whatever is coming? Do we truly believe that and trust him with it?
yeah,
And are we asking him? Even, that's a big part. Are we asking him, and are we asking him solid questions and giving him time to respond and lead us? And then in your presence is the fullness of joy. This one has really spoken to me a lot lately because I feel like in so many venues, what I see around me even is a lot of Christians even walking in fear, not in joy,
right.
and not trusting what he's leading. But this verse, if you believe what his word is, that his word is true, it says in his presence is the fullness of joy.
Yes,
That means I'm not living in fear. I'm not living in doubt. In fact, I'm living in anticipation that he's going to instruct me. And even through the worst of whatever goes on and through the crazy of the craziest, that I will still get to walk in joy because I am with him.
yeah,
And then, at your right hand are pleasures forevermore. Again, do we believe it? Do we know it? Are we experiencing it? Are we falling into the spiral with the rest of the world in the woe is me? The world's falling apart. What are we going to do? And yet, if we really believe this verse, then we live as a light. We live as a lampstand holding out that we have the source of joy, the source of wisdom, the source of salvation, and that anybody who wants to come to him gets the same privilege,
right.
you know?
Right, and it's the aspect of the viewpoint and the belief, so that
Mm-hmm.
if we look at the world in a natural way, remember as a Christian in the flesh, we're called in the carnal, we are going to gravitate toward the natural,
Right.
which is why we become in Romans 8:5-8. We put to death the very power that God gives us. We are at enmity against Him, and we cannot please Him. And what happens is that we basically act as if God isn't really there for us.
Right.
We're just subject to the events of the world and the impact that's going to have on me. It's called Christian fatalism. There's a broad thought that, everything that happens is God's will. And I guess this difficulty, which even can be on a global basis or a national basis, is, I guess this is God's will, and I'm just going to be relegated to a life of difficulty. And what we're trying to help people understand is that no, God has a will that is in the kingdom of God, which is righteousness, peace, and joy, and He's the King. And so we operate in both places. That the world is under the control of the enemy. It is kill, steal, and destroy. It has been that way ever since Adam and Eve. There has been no perfect place like Garden of Eden again, and that God isn't resetting the entire system of the world to eliminate evil.
Right.
Because it was handed over by Adam and Eve to the enemy, and He said to Christ in Luke 4, all the kingdoms of the world have been given to me, I can give them to you. And Christ said, yeah, I know. Adam and Eve handed it over to you, but I'm not going to get it back by that. And then He says, after the resurrection, He's regained the authority. But it's clear, and by the way, this is it's a really simple, interesting verse based on the expectation. The disciples, after the resurrection, their view of Messiah was a earthly ruler that was going to eliminate evil.
Right.
And they said, and this
even though they were walking with Him and hearing Him say otherwise all along.
all the time. In Acts chapter 1, they have a question, and they said, is this the time that you're going to get rid of evil and take care of everything? And He said, no. But you will be my witnesses when power comes upon you and you live out the beautiful life I have for you in the kingdom of God. So He tried to help us understand that these two kingdoms operate simultaneously. We are in the physical, we are in the natural, and we are of the world under the influence of the enemy. Right. God has a kingdom that is way superior to that. Nothing surprises Him, doesn't limit Him in any way. He can deliver what He calls the covenant life. I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing. I have like you said in Psalm 16, I have a path for you, and there's pleasures evermore. He doesn't say if everything is going great in the world.
Exactly.
He said in my presence, because in the kingdom of God. So the question that really comes up for everybody is, do you understand this dichotomy that everything that happens is not God's will?
Right.
And that the world is wicked and evil. And again, the simple explanation of having to help people understand that is, I say, two Christian people, a man and a woman, get married. It's clear in Scripture that God says, my will is for you to thrive, to have joy together, to have fulfillment together. And to stay married and build a family and enjoy your life together. Well, then how do over half of them right now get divorced? See, it can't be God's will that, well, I will you to get married and I bless you getting married, but now I will you to divorce and separate. Well, that can't be. And if that was so, then we all might as well just give up and say, well, whatever happens, happens. And it's going to be miserable, I guess, which is where most believers live. And he said, no, I have a will in my kingdom. And so that number one is if we understand that dichotomy, then I would understand that everything isn't God's will. So therefore, I need to discover God's will. And then two is, can I trust it? Yeah. Which is trust him in the middle of chaos, in the middle of adversity, in the middle of this difficult place we now live. And this goes back to the scriptures we've already read about, I'm going to provide you the covenant. I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing. I have good plans for you, not plans to harm you, but plans for a hope and a future. And Jesus himself, which is a verse we want to look at right now, he made a statement that he admitted that, the enemy and the world of the enemy is kill, steal, and destroy. But he says, here's why I've come. So if you'd read John 10:10, Jesus makes a statement here.
It says, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly.
Yeah. And the word there is super abundantly. And it's the very same statement that God had spoken in Genesis 1:31 when he had created everything. He said he looked at everything and it was exceptionally good. And Christ has basically said, what I've come to do is to restore back that exceptionally good life, to you in a world dominated, by the enemy. Yeah, it's kill, steal, and destroy. But Christ said, I've come to bring that life back to you now.
Right in the middle of it.
In the middle of it. As you walk in my kingdom, let me be king. Let me guide you. Let me lead you. And so we start to understand that is available, to everybody, and it's not limited. It's not the lucky ones. It's available to everybody. And then if you go to Psalm 65:11, it also speaks specifically to this way this path looks. So go to 65:11.
It says, you crown the year with your bounty. Your wagon tracks overflow with abundance.
Yeah. So it's interesting that they use the word wagon tracks. It's the path of life. What you go down, you're moving forward down a path. And it overflows with abundance. Okay, now what is that abundance? The life that Christ just said I'm bringing. Right. It will overflow. And that's what he's trying to explain to us, is that it'll be grand, all aspects of it, so that I'm going to give you financial freedom. I'll take care of you regardless of what's going on with the economy. I'm going to give you joy in your marriage. I'm going to give you joy in fellowship. I'm going to resolve all your issues, that nothing is too difficult for me, because it'll overflow with abundance while you're going down the path. And by the way, we know where that path is. It's in the world. That's troublesome. And Jesus said, while you're going down that path in the world, you're going to have what? Trouble. Tribulation, pressure, difficulty. He said, so I'm not, my path isn't to remove you from that place. It's in the middle of that place while you experience, like everybody else does, the difficulties like we're experiencing right now with COVID. We as believers are not exempt. Right. So are people getting sick? Yeah. Do they have to deal with the disruption of that if they work, like, for example, in an industry where they're going to shut you down again or have shut you down and you've already experienced it? I'm not exempt from that. Right. in
Many
the
them from the loss. There's, we're
yeah,
hearing stories of loss.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and in the middle of it, it's, well, do I trust and seek God's will, which has to be, in a spiritual place. And he tells us something about this. So if you go to Matthew 28, 18 to 20, he describes for us um, what is that will as it relates to me personally, as well as, and again, we want to keep referring to this, the bigger story.
Mm-hmm.
It's the flow through of the covenant. I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
I am having you join me, God speaking, in a bigger story of the kingdom. And it's not all about me. And it isn't, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? He says, actually, it's more what I want to do for you, God speaking, and for you to join me in the pleasant path, the path
Mm-hmm.
of abundance, the life of abundance. And I will deliver this to you, and you'll join me in receiving it and give it away. So if you go to Matthew 28, I read verses 18 to 20.
Says, and Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age.
Yeah. So first of all, he says, all authority has been given to me.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We understand that he took on the penalty that was required, and God handed him now the authority over creation. So the question comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wait a second. I thought you just said that Satan has control over the world, and he still has the kingdoms, and that he is in control. Which, by the way, 1 John 5:18 says Satan is still in control. This is post-resurrection. So how do those two things line up? And doesn't Christ have all the authority, and therefore can't he just handle all the evil and take care of it? Couple things about that. One, the authority functions in his kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
His kingdom is a spiritual kingdom, and so is all authority given to him in his kingdom? Yes, it is, and it that's number one. Number two, is that authority superior to the authority of the world and the authority of Satan?
Yes.
Yeah. See that because why? Well, you put two and two together, and this is Hebrews 11, chapter 11:3, verse 3. The world, and we read that in Genesis as well, was created by him speaking it.
Right.
It was the spiritual activity of the Spirit speaking his word, and it created material.
Right.
Created the physical, which by the way,
does then make the material subject to the
subject.
spiritual.
By definition, the material is subject to the power of the spiritual, which created it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's superior, and as a result of that, any difficulty, any trouble, is why Christ says, "Well, I've overcome it," because here he says in Matthew that all authority has now been restored back to me in the spiritual kingdom, and I can impact, change, and have opportunity to deliver what I want to do, because I can speak to it.
Right.
Which is what we're talking about in terms of God's will, is that God says, here's what I would like to do for you, and deliver to you this beautiful grand life, the covenant life, the abundant life. And it supersedes the world that you're going to be part of. And because of what Jesus said, is that you are going to be in both places. In the world, and by the way, you can read further about this in John 17. He's praying to the Father. And,
Right.
and he says, I'm not praying that we remove them from the world. Rather, interesting enough, I'm sending them into the world, which he understands is trouble, kill, steal, and destroy, under the control of the enemy, and why all this bad stuff happens. But I'm sending him into the world to bring my kingdom there, so that those that join my kingdom, and he goes on to say, can be one with us like we are one, and their joy will be full.
Yes.
Because they'll live in the kingdom while they're living in a difficult world. And guess what? Yep, they're going to have trouble, but my authority supersedes it. So that as he speaks in both Old and New Testament, and he's talking to us who are dealing with this stuff, nothing is too difficult for me. Why? Well, because his authority supersedes it. I can change it. I can speak to it. I can make things happen, because I just have to exercise my spiritual authority over the physical, which is true. And that's why as we're talking about chaos, for example, nothing is limiting him. Nothing surprises him. It doesn't say, if everything works in the world, then I can do well for you. He just says, I'll just do well for you in a very difficult place. And then he says here, all authority has been given to me. He said, now go make what? Disciples.
Disciples, yeah.
Okay, the word disciple is someone who walks with God. It's really cool. It's not learning a bunch of stuff. It's walking with God, being led by God, under the power of God, and this is implied in his kingdom. And he says, as you have learned this, now you go teach others to observe, live out the very life that I'm giving you, which, by the way, is what? The abundant life. So there it is. Now here's the question. If I said to somebody, do you believe that we're called to build disciples? Everybody says, yeah.
Everybody says yes.
Yeah. Okay. And I say this. He said to live out the life that he has given us. And I go to John 10:10. And Christ has come to give us what? Life abundantly. Life abundantly. Yeah. Okay, I said, so there's the life that he says, I want you to have disciples learn. And so the question that I ask is really simple. Are you experiencing that abundant life? Interesting enough, most of the time the answer is no. And I said, then how could you lead others to live out that life if you're not living it out? And so Jesus implied here that the way it's going to go is multiplication. And that is that you're going to live it out. You receive it. You walk with me. You understand what abiding's all about. You understand about determining and discerning my will, and experiencing my will, which, by the way, will be the abundant life. When you do that, you then can offer that to other people who will say, is that possible for me? Our answer is going to be yes, because there's no limitation. And I guarantee you, and this is what the gospel is about, that regardless of the trouble that you're experiencing, which is usually the motivation, God can deliver his beautiful will and give you the abundant life too. Would you like to learn what it means to walk with him? So discipling isn't, here's the 5 things you got to learn, or here's the Bible study you got to do, or join this church or join this ministry, and then you'll be a disciple of God. It's literally walking with him in the kingdom of God.
Right.
And as we
And I
get, go
love,
ahead.
even as you look at that, I had learned before, that go therefore and make disciples, that tense of go actually means as you go.
Yeah, as you go.
So when you're walking, it is really that true disciple making is us on a journey, asking God for his path and inviting others authentically into that journey with us to see the path and showing them how to hear the path too
Yeah,
as we go.
yeah,
That whole thing is really, I think a lot of times people put it they put, yes, we, like you said, we absolutely have to be experiencing it to give it away because it's as we go. It's living life together and pursuing him and then bringing others and teaching them to do it. And we put it on this big thing of, well, missionaries are called to do that,
yeah.
or I'm not good enough yet.
Right,
I can't make a disciple. And
right.
it's no, are you willing? Do you have a heart to seek God? Then you know what? As you go, live it out loud authentically and bring others with you and show them how to go and find somebody who knows how to hear his voice and hop onto that and listen and seek it. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we've talked about, uh, as we invite people to walk alongside of God, to learn what it means to be a disciple as we're going, as well as we're living out disciples. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, make disciples. The biggest question that comes up as we say, you can have the abundant life, God can restore you. Um, my experience has been that that's where the difficulty comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Is that they're again under this kind of thought that, well, everything that happens is God's will, and they just, when you talk about, okay, what about the bad stuff that happens, they say, well, it must be permissive will.
Mm.
He permits
Yeah,
it,
I've heard that before too. Yeah.
permissive, and he could stop it, but he doesn't stop it because that's his, and so whenever you interpret that, it's still, I still say, well, then that means it's his will.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, quote, permitting it means he's allowing it to happen. That's his will. Um, and as it happens to me, my conclusion is, well, then it must, either I'm not good enough to ever warrant the abundant life,
Mm-hmm.
or God, it really isn't that good and nobody gets it.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything that I see is difficult. And so I say, I understand that, and your view of it, and underneath it all, when I get to talk to them, they do admit they have an anger toward God. Because if God was
Mm-hmm.
able to do things differently in my life, then why didn't he?
Then why hasn't he?
Why
Right.
hasn't he? And he must not be that good, and or I can't trust it for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason. And I'm kind of angry about that because my life is difficult. So I said, I understand that. If you're going to learn to be a disciple, um, would you have the same heart that the original disciples had? And that is,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't know anything.
Right.
He just said, come and follow me. And they said, all right, I'm willing to literally give up this life I have, and I'm going to come follow you. I don't know a thing about it, and I can't even say you're going to do anything for me. I'm just going to come and be a disciple. I'm willing to
Mm-hmm.
walk with you. And I said, if you do, and I said, think of the disciples. What happened to them is, did they ever understand the supernatural? Did they say, oh yeah, this will be great. I get to experience all this fantastic stuff. They didn't know anything.
No,
But
they
what
were just walking with him
they
day
were,
in and day out,
they just
asking
walked with them,
questions,
and then
experiencing life.
as they learned it, they got to experience the abundant life.
Yeah.
Um, then when Christ said, now you can give this away, go and make disciples
Mm-hmm.
and demonstrate to them the life that you have learned, and they got to do it the same way. They got to
Mm-hmm.
follow me. And they won't know it at first, but if they will walk with me like you boys did, you'll understand it, live it, and experience it. And by the way,
Mm-hmm.
then they'll give it away. So what I ask people is, um, if you, even though you hesitate and wonder, is this really worth it or going to change anything, or is it going to be more difficult? I say, well, why don't you go for a while and just walk with him? Let me help you walk with him. You'll see how fantastic this is. The abundant life will become true to you. And Kathy and I were just amongst our leaders that we were filming new content. And the one thing that we all have in common is that we learned how to walk with God. We went from places that were pretty difficult and not happy and not joyful, trouble, and we've all learned to live out the abundant life. Now, again, it doesn't exempt us from trouble. We all talked about that, and we all prayed about that. Hey, what are you addressing today?
There are new issues daily.
New issues, and what does God have to say about that? Now we know something. He's going to resolve it. It's going to lead to the abundance. We will live the covenant life, and this trouble will get resolved. And we have the joy of sharing that. So all we can do is we encourage everybody is to not be limited in, well, I'm not sure I want to, or sure this is worthy of it. We're saying it is worthy of it, to come and see. You know, it's kind of the title of our podcast is, why don't you come and see, experience God. Let us help you with that as you learn what it means to walk with him, which is what we're trying to show you. And as you do, you will experience the abundant life. So, Kathy, we're at the end of our session today, and we just urge everybody, if you have a question, certainly to, set it up, and you can put it on the comments section or email us at questions@afjministry.com, questions@afjministry.com. And we would encourage you to keep, and as Kathy, you can keep sharing with them, is tell others that this life is available to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're not experiencing that yourself right now, take some time to really ask God what that's all about, and go back and look at Psalm 16:11, that verse that spoke to me so much this week. And ask yourself the real questions. If you know it, if you believe it, if you're experiencing it, and, do I believe God is that good? Do I believe he loves me? And you know what? If there's an answer of no to any of that, go to him and let him show you. Let him, Rich said, come and see. Come and see. I promise you, it is there for you, and he wants to take you on this journey. So go there with him.
And you can send us specific things, and we're happy to help you. So
absolutely,
we'll look forward to picking this up again tomorrow, Kathy. And
sounds great.
Hope you have a good day.
You too. Take care.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.